I'm joined by Radio Woking's Declan McCarthy, who was at the game yesterday. Declan, how did you see it going? It was a pretty awful game for Woking, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, Jacob. Firstly, thank you for bringing me on EverythingWFC today. But the game yesterday, it was. Some probably would say it was the worst game they've seen in a year and a half, and I would completely agree with that. You know, I've never just, in all my time, not just covering Woking, but in some aspects of the game yesterday, it was some of the worst I've seen defensively, and it was very disappointing on the day, to be honest, Jacob. I was so excited when I woke up. I thought, Woking can really give this, and I wasn't just thinking of a close 2-1, a 3-2. I was really thinking maybe a 2-0, 3-0. We had after watching the Eastleigh game, where I was so impressed defensively, especially with the likes of Joe McNerney and James Clark together, I really had a good hope, because that was always the big worry, wasn't it? How defensively are we going to shape up against Aldershot? And I was just really disappointed with yesterday.
Yeah, I think the defence was a worry, and I think a lot of the time they didn't clear the ball. And that was down to their own mistakes. Sometimes they're trying to be too pretty with it and got caught. But also the midfield, I thought that Aldershot closed down really well in the midfield, and they kind of had Woking's number on that one. And every time Woking tried to settle on the ball in the midfield, they just, they were a lot stronger and won the ball back off of them, and played a lot more crucial balls through the middle of the park. And we just couldn't seem to deal with it, could we?
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned a great point there as well. We could sit here all day and say how bad Woking were, but we have to give credit to them. Unfortunately, they really did have a game plan, and it looked really good. I mean, Manny Oliyaleke, he played very well, and I had seen him before previously in a couple of games a couple of weeks ago, and kind of asking around as I do, and a lot of people didn't actually really like him. Since he came back from injury, he hasn't really been the same player. But yesterday he was on top. It's probably easy to say he kind of bossed it, whether he, some people will probably think different, but it was more about the defensive high line from Aldershot that won it for me. I mean, they played so far up the pitch. Every time Payne got the ball, the defence was pretty much on top of them, and I just felt Aldershot tactically had it spot on yesterday, and Manny Oliyaleke was just pulling the strings, and by the time Aldershot had with Payne in the middle of the park, it was already with Joe Ostler as the long ball went, and Jack Merritt was never going to beat the experienced Joe Ostler in the air. And it showed another aspect of the game that without Rendell, we don't have the height in the air. But you spot on there, Jacob. You have to give credit to Aldershot. Tactically, they got it spot on, and midfield-wise, there was no midfield for Woking. We give so much credit to Payne each week, but he just wasn't there yesterday, and he didn't have the opportunities or the chances to.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, as well. You kind of look at it, I think the aerial threat that you were talking about, as soon as Rendell came on, it almost seemed like the balls we were putting in the box were almost, more meaningful, and he was taking them down, and the players were running off of them. It did look a lot better, but I don't think, it was quite an exciting finish in the end. I mean, the last, 10 minutes probably, including stoppage time, were quite exciting, because obviously we got the goal with 2 minutes to go, and then we had a free kick, I think, right near the end. But really, that kind of that can't really mask over a really bad performance, can it?
No, not at all. And I was actually talking to a colleague earlier, and I said I only enjoyed 17 minutes of the game. I only enjoyed the first 7 minutes, and I only enjoyed the last 10 minutes, because, like you said, once Rendell came on, it wasn't an instant change, but just straight away Rendell wins a header, and I think it was the first header we won in 30 minutes. So that was a relief, and obviously the goal was nice as well. But as you say, overall it was a very bad performance. I spoke to Gary Hill after the game, and he was not pleased, as you can imagine. He felt that a lot of players have let him down, and of course the big topic at the moment is Joey Jones. The reaction Gary Hill gave to the 2 foul throws from Joey Jones, I mean, the first goal, we don't like to put any blame on a certain player, but it was a missed ball from John Gollard in the middle of the field, and Joey Jones simply just gave him too much time to, the cross should have never come in at that point. Joey Jones should have been on the end of McCollin's toes, and he simply wasn't. I don't know whether that was the Christmas dinner or the Peronis after the Christmas dinner that slowed him down, but he was very slow to react. Jones gave McCollin way too much time on the ball, gave him time to think, and before you knew it, it was in the back of the net, and it wasn't a great goal either. It was a very lackadaisical goal. Ross Warner wasn't quick enough to react to what was going on, but then to be fair to him, the on-running Dan Holman made it difficult. But if you really think about it hard, it was Joey Jones. You know, he didn't give him enough. He gave him too much time, and that's really where we fell at the first goal, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you'd have thought, I know, in a derby, you know, the players would, you know, not be. You know, you'd think they'd be so fired up for it that they'd be trying to do everything almost too quickly, as opposed to giving too much room. You'd always want to be too tight in a derby. You wouldn't want to lose your man. It just seemed like a really weird start to the game from Woking, and obviously they found themselves 2-0 down pretty quickly on, and it just didn't seem like they really turned up at all. Which, and I think that's the thing that most Woking supporters are struggling to deal with. You know, particularly is that there was no fight there. I mean, you see derbies all the time in football, and I don't think, you know, when one team loses, you know, I think the least they want to see is their teams giving it their best shot, and there wasn't really that passion yesterday, and it certainly wasn't our best shot. So I think, you know, that's probably why a lot of the Woking fans will have gone home, you know, really disappointed, because as you said at the top of this interview, it was a really good chance how we've been playing this season to get a good result.
Yeah, and that was the main difference. It was almost like false hope. We've mentioned this before. We're previously talking in the past, but it was almost like false hope, isn't it? When the referee blew his full-time whistle, we kind of should have seen it. Really, it was just a very lackadaisical performance especially by certain individuals. I mean, John Gennady really did try to give it his all, but he was out-muscled every time, beaten in the air every time, and I couldn't stress enough as well. And that first half performance was probably the worst I've ever seen. And I think your Woking fans should be, they almost have the right to be disappointed and have an opinion on this matter, because to go into a game so lackadaisical, so kind of laid back, and that's what it felt like. Aldershot was so ready for the game, and they looked so electrified by the atmosphere, and you know, there wasn't as big a crowd as last year, and you know, there was just a really good feeling around it. Up in the press box there I was yesterday, a really good feeling. 7 minutes later, the first goal, and it was a bullet. It was an absolute bullet through your body, because after that, Aldershot run the rings in the first half, and you know, in football you can't really put your finger on it, but overall you just have to say, you know, some players just weren't up to the plate, and they just, and once again, bottled it on a derby day.
I think it's been a poor month. I think if you look back at it, the only win was, I think, was the 2nd of December in the league. Obviously there was a trophy win against Eastleigh in there as well. But it's been a poor December all round, and I don't know if he mentioned it to you in your interview with Gary after the game, but I think in the BBC Surrey interview he was talking about loan players and whether they'd proved their worth and we were going to keep hold of them, and certain other players he was discussing as well. Who would you expect to see stay, or more importantly, who would you expect to see leave in January for Woking to free up some more money?
Well, in terms of staying, I think it's easy to say who would kind of stay. Of course, you would like to have Chris Arthur. Defensively, I wouldn't say he's maybe a top 5 team defender, but going forward, I don't think there's anyone better on the loanee market to have Chris Arthur, especially against Eastleigh. I had journalists all around me, kind of shocked by the pace of a left back that could attack another right back so dominantly, and everyone like myself, this is textbook from Chris Arthur, because he does that, or he's been doing that all year. So he would be definitely one person I would be nailing down to the Woking Kingsfield pitch as soon as I could. But in terms of departure, well, I know that Mike Sester, whether he's having an operation or being further looked at as injury, that will take place, I believe, on the 5th of January. So we'll have more information on Mike Sester's injury then. But in terms of going, I think there has to be raised eyebrows about Kieran Matai. I don't know if he's been up to the plate in the last month. I wasn't overly impressed with him, even against Eastleigh. If I'm honest, I didn't recognise he was on the pitch for a good 45-50 minutes, and then he popped up, and he's got goals in him, but I don't think he's going to find them this year at Woking. I don't know whether it's Woking have stepped up or maybe he's stepped off the ladder, but I just feel... Personally, I think Joey Jones is a better centre midfielder, although he did have a very, very bad game yesterday, Joey Jones. It was a tragic 22 minutes, but I do believe it, you know, having Joey Jones in the middle of the park, he's a much better player, he's suited to that role, and Kieran Matai just hasn't been up to the plate for me this year for Woking.
What about Jack Marriott? Obviously he's due to go back in January. Do you think it's worth keeping him on? You know, he's been pretty poor by his high standards. which he set last season, and obviously for a Championship striker, even though he's quite young, he does play for the team that I think they're currently leading the Championship, so you'd be expecting more from him certainly at the moment. Is it really worth keeping him on, or would it be worth bringing Beckles back and maybe with the money we save, bringing in another striker?
I think personally we'll have to stick with Marriott, and I know I have said previously maybe it's time for a change, but I just think a team without Marriott at this moment in time, and then all it takes is a bad signing, a bad loanee market, and really you're left with just Rendell then. Morgan has maybe in one quality game, and lucky against Eastleigh he was absolutely out of his skin, and then we'll see maybe 4 or 5 bad games where he's only just moderate or average. I think Marriott just gives us a bit of pace up front, and I think that's what we lack when we don't have someone like Marriott in the side. I think sometimes when Marriott has a bad game, all he does really provide is a bit of a scare, a bit of pace, gets the defenders running, because Giuseppe Solly's not one of the quickest strikers. Morgan, we know he doesn't really like to do a lot of running. He likes the ball at feet, and Rendell likes the ball in the air. And with Marriott running on the balls that Rendell can supply all day with them beautiful headers, I just think it would be disappointing to let Marriott go, although he hasn't had the best season. So on form you would probably say yes, maybe it's time for a change, but I just think he's suited to the club. It's his second only club as well. I think Ipswich will probably want to better that and just maybe say, stick with Woking, the club, Gary Hill, the players, the team, and I just don't like the idea of him possibly going and bringing in someone else who's maybe not in the click at Woking, who doesn't fit the team, maybe doesn't play well, doesn't play enough, and then really we're left with Sol, Morgan and Beckles, who, as we've seen, can get goals, but I just don't think Beckles is ready, or it's almost unfair to compare him with Jack Marriott of yet. So overall I would definitely keep Jack Marriott, but I wouldn't be absolutely distraught if he was to go in January, but I won't sit on the fence too much for you, Jacob. I will definitely keep Jack Marriott.
Where else do you think they could improve though? I think it might be that they managed to free up enough money for kind of 2, whether it be free agents or 2 new loan signings. In what positions do you think they'd be best suited?
I honestly believe we're actually quite weak down in the central of our team, which is quite surprising, some people might find, but I feel that once you take Payne out of the equation, and one of the main factors because of this is because Mark Ricketts, and we've missed him so much this year. We saw it all the way back in Nuneaton, where they weren't a great side at all. We probably maybe just had a bit of an off day. It was a cold Tuesday night, and we just could not defend against them. And the reason why is because as soon as they picked the ball, it was a run straight throughout the middle. Either Matai or Payne was out injured, or one of them was suspended and one of them was out of position all the time. It was probably Kieran Matai, and it was straight through the middle consistently, and teams have picked that up. Woking haven't got a midfielder at the moment who will sit perfectly in front of the 4. Now, Josh Payne, he did that against Eastleigh and it worked. It was very good, but you didn't see Payne in the final third of the pitch, so that you lose that kind of aspect of the game from him. Now, the problem is, without Mark Ricketts, we don't have anyone who can really control a defence, a midfield and a defence. We don't have I know it's a big difference, but like Chelsea, they have Matic, who is completely a ball stopper. He completely stops the run, and we don't have that without Ricketts. Ricketts is so important for the Woking side, and we have such a better side with him in the team. I think we have to kind of long term think about this injury he's got, and really maybe dig deep and just find a great loanee or even a free agent as a midfielder. I think midfielder is more of a free agent market as you get a bit of an older generation there, and I just generally believe that we need a centre midfielder who can really stop, because we're fine going forward. We know we are fine going forward, although of late goals have been hard to come by, but that doesn't help with the Scott Rendell injury. But I feel midfield wise, and especially central, we're not good enough in terms of stopping opposition. And then the second position, a big worry for me is goalkeeper. Now, we lost Aaron Howell. Where does this leave Jake Cole in the wings? I mean, Ross Warner, is he going to go back at one point? A lot of people have a bit of doubts with him. I don't know about you, Jacob. I mean, he's a great shot stopper, but set pieces, he worries the life out of me, and I know he does for a lot of other fans, but where does that leave Jake Cole? Will he be back in the team? Will he play 2 games and get injured? It is a bit of a sticky situation, goalkeeper, for me, where we looked so comfortable a year ago with Aaron Howell and Sam Besant, who of course has gone to Stevenage, but yeah, goalkeeper and central midfield is a bit of a worry for me, especially long term, Jacob.
Yeah, I guess Mark Ricketts, I think he's due to come back in early January, so that's going to be like a new signing in itself, I guess.
Absolutely.
So that might be a position we don't have to worry about too much. But yeah, I think, I'm not sure. Obviously, we saw what happened with Howe, where his contract was mutually terminated. Obviously he was coming back from injury and he was struggling a bit, but it does show that the club aren't, or Gary's not scared to, sit down with a player, and when it's not good enough, and then they're not performing well enough, for whatever reason it is, be it injury or whatever, to come to a conclusion where they're not at the club any longer. So do you think that could be something else that happens with an outfield player in January, or is that, was that just a really rare one-off thing with Aaron Howe, do you think?
I think with Aaron Howe that was a bit of a one. I think it was just down to, in terms of his injury, and I know that he was struggling outside of football in terms of even getting to work on time and stuff like that due to his injury. And it was quite a big injury, and of course you mentioned their performance was never there, and some of the performances, we have to be honest, were very bad, although on his day Aaron Howell was probably a great shot stopper, but in January, if I don't believe Gary Hill, of course he has the power, but I don't believe it would be smart to sit down with a player in January and kind of say, look, I don't think your performances have been up to scratch, because I personally believe at the stage that we're in, we kind of need a bit of a team, a unit. I mean, we're in 5th place now. We're really battling against some bigger teams, maybe not such as Eastleigh, but Kidderminster, and they're all around us, biting at our ankles, and I think it would just be a bit of a bad time to get rid of some players with a very stretched squad at the moment. I mean, it shows clearly in the last couple of weeks how Rendell is such a massive miss, and it stretches the attack in terms of formation. I mean, 4-3-3 absolutely killed us yesterday, and I really hope he doesn't go for it again against Eastleigh on Thursday, because that first half performance I just do not want to see again, Jacob.
Despite, obviously, this month there's obviously, as I was saying, there was only the one victory within the league, obviously the one trophy victory as well, but could this season still be ending at Wembley? It's not all doom and gloom, is it? I think, if they get, 2 or 3 wins under their belt in January, kind of, it's how quickly and how fickle football can be, I guess, isn't it, at times where, we go from this kind of depressing lull to, oh no, we're actually back up to, 3rd or 2nd and all looking towards the playoffs again.
Absolutely, and I think one of the biggest games coming up for us really are the next 4 home games. We have Eastleigh, of course, on Thursday, then Bristol Rovers. I mean, a massive 3 points there. Morale-wise would be absolutely massive for the club. And then, of course, at the end of February, I think we're playing Torquay or Grimsby. I mean, they're 2 big home games as well. And, they're massive games. 3 points out of them, and they're real morale boosters, and they're the ones that can kind of keep you going, especially towards the back end of the season. And we saw it last year when we went through a bit of a sticky patch, and we finished the year probably the best Woking run I've ever seen, and it was brilliant to be part of as well. I think the next month we've got tricky games. Gateshead away on a Wednesday, which is a bit unfortunate to have it on a Wednesday night, all the way at Gateshead. So I'm not really looking at anything, but I think it's the games such as away on a Saturday against Kidderminster Harriers, the away games against Lincoln City, and I genuinely believe Woking aren't out of this playoff fight at all. I do feel though that this is a month, especially January, it can't be another 4 games losing streak. It can't be another 3 games losing streak. We have to start picking up points. And I know that's easy to say sitting here, in the office, speaking to you, Jacob, but I just feel maybe after the loaning market, if Gary Hill finds something to bring in, he has a proven track record of bringing in players that are good enough to be in the Vanarama Conference, playing good, attacking football, which we like to see at Kingfield. I think we're definitely still in the run for going to Wembley. Obviously, we're not going to win the league, and we all know this, but a playoff final is definitely not out of the reach. Of course, an FA Trophy final is another matter. I mean, Oxford City is coming up in the next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday. And of course we can beat Oxford City. I don't see why we can't. Obviously the rounds will get harder and they'll develop more, but we'll have to readjust it consistently with the FA Trophy. So, there's another thought to that. Maybe the FA Trophy, if we lose, it's not the worst problem in the world. We get a fitter squad. Luckily, the FA Trophy doesn't fall midweek most times unless it's a replay, but we'll have a fitter squad playing, and the real focus will be on the league. But one of my main worries for Wembley, if touch wood we go into Wembley in the playoffs, is of course the teams around us we're not actually beating. That's the only worry for me. We need to be stronger and harder on ourselves, especially in the top 8 teams. We're not beating teams around us at all. I don't know an actual statistic on that, but it's just disappointing to see that we're not beating the likes of Grimsby and Macclesfield, Forest Green, and then losing against Aldershot is always a big blowout, isn't it? But yeah, I still think we're in the run of it, but I think the games such as Kidderminster away, I mean the real big games,